Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Tuesday, June 16th. This is Gina McGuire. Currently we are expecting very warm conditions and dry conditions across the Great Basin through at least early next week, with temperatures 10 to 12 degrees above normal. This will rapidly dry out the fuels along with very low relative humidity in the single digits, especially across Nevada and Utah into parts of southern Idaho. There may be a few lingering thunderstorms today over parts of Idaho or Wyoming, and again on Friday. Otherwise, we're looking at an extended period of dry weather across the basin. Looking at the lightning over the last 24 hours, we've had significant lightning over parts of central and southeast Idaho into Wyoming and Utah, and this brought rainfall amounts of most areas seeing over 1/4 of an inch of rainfall, and many areas seeing up to or in excess of 3/4 of an inch of rainfall. This continues to keep wet conditions across the Great Basin, with areas seeing above normal precipitation over the last 7 days, predominantly over Nevada and Utah, and over the last 30 days, almost all areas of the Great Basin have seen above normal precipitation, with the exception of parts of southern Nevada and central and southwest Idaho. Now looking at the water vapor satellite image from this morning, we have an area of low pressure off the Alaskan coast and an area of high pressure further south, keeping us in west to southwest flow across the Great Basin, and this pattern will continue through this weekend, keeping very warm temperatures and breezy winds in many areas. Generally, low fire potential is expected. However, due to this increasing warmth and dry conditions in the basin, we are starting to see some areas transition to drying out of the fuels, especially over parts of southern and western Nevada into Idaho. Temperatures today will remain well above normal, and the strongest winds today will be over parts of southern and eastern Nevada into Utah, where gusts will exceed 30 miles per hour at times. We'll also see very low relative humidity in parts of these areas. However, again, fuels are still green across Utah and into parts of Nevada. Now looking at the weather over the next 2 days, again this pattern doesn't change, but you can see the much drier air now moving into California and Nevada, and this will spread eastward across the basin, keeping relative humidity in the single digits across much of Nevada and into Utah on Wednesday, with the strongest winds along parts of the Sierra Front and into Utah, western Wyoming, and parts of southeast Idaho. As we move into Thursday, this pattern continues with the drier air pushing further east across the entire basin, and this will allow for more significant drying due to the hot temperatures, where temperatures will exceed 110 over parts of southern Nevada. Also, the winds will be strongest and increasing, especially over western Nevada and the Sierra Front on Thursday, with wind gusts in excess of 25 or 30 miles per hour, along with these very dry conditions keeping relative humidity below 10%. Therefore, over the next couple of days this week, we could have some critical fire weather conditions in local areas, and in areas where the fuels are dry, if we see an ignition, there would be a potential for some spread. However, again, fuels are still drying out and have not become critical in many areas. Therefore, this will likely be a local concern. Looking at the weather pattern from Friday through early next week, you'll notice not much of a change, with very dry conditions across the Great Basin, and we'll see fuels continue to also rapidly dry due to the hot temperatures and low humidity. Therefore, again, we're seeing more yellow and browns on the 7-day, especially over parts of southern and western Nevada and into southwest Idaho as we go through the weekend. We'll also can see the temperatures increase as we go through early next week as the ridge of high pressure starts to build slightly further north, especially over the southern half of the Great Basin. Therefore, these hot temperatures will continue for the next 7 to 10 days. Now looking at the current fuel conditions across the Great Basin, ERCs are still below the 50th percentile in all areas, however have been increasing recently due to the return of warm and dry weather. However, again, after the very wet period we saw in May and early June, it will take some time before the ERCs climb up to critical levels. However, due to very hot and dry conditions over the next 7 to 10 days, that transition may take place fairly quickly in some areas. Also, the cheatgrass is starting to cure out over parts of the lower elevations of parts of Nevada. As we look at live fuel moisture conditions, we're seeing sagebrush fuel moisture still near to above average. However, again, after a period of very warm and dry conditions over the next 7 to 10 days, those fuel moistures will likely decrease more significantly. The Climate Prediction Center is still looking for above normal temperatures and below normal precipitation for the 8 to 14-day period taking us through the end of June. Any moisture we see will likely return sometime by the middle of next week. That concludes this briefing. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at the emails on the screen, or you can follow us on Twitter. Thank you for listening.